You want to say something to your kids?
Mama, sorry.
Who raising your kids?
Me and my mom and dad.
You ain't raising shit. You on here in your back smoking crack. You ain't going home tomorrow. I'm going to keep you about a week.
Later, he would establish his total dominance.
Say it clear.
You are the master.
The video you witnessed is not from a movie or scripted. These are real people, victims who fell prey to a monster, 36-year-old Maury Travis. His crimes were so horrific that the police chief in the area ordered psychological counseling for anyone who had even watched the footage of his victims. He would lure victims into his basement, where he would subject them to unimaginable torture and bizarre rituals. What drove Maury Travis to commit such horrific crimes? How did he lure his victims into his basement without raising suspicion? The central character of today's story, Maury Travis, was born on October 25, 1965. He was known by the nickname Toby and lived with his mother Sandra Travis and his father Michael V. Travis in Carr Square, a public housing complex in St. Louis, Missouri. They later bought a house at 1001 Ford Avenue in Ferguson in April 1976. Maury Travis's childhood seemed relatively ordinary. While he was undeniably introverted and reserved, he was also known for his exceptional politeness and respect. Adults who interacted with him perceived him as someone who was highly mindful of etiquette and social norms. One teacher distinctly called Maury as an unusually quiet teenager, who even took the initiative to mow his neighbor's lawn. His demeanor at school was unremarkable, and those who knew him, including teachers, parents, and peers, never suspected him of being capable of violence. When police later interviewed individuals who attended school with Maury or lived near him, many of them didn't even recognize who he was. He didn't leave a memorable impression. In all of his childhood that is known to us, the separation of his parents was the only potential trauma that he may have experienced. He graduated from McClure High School in 1985 and served 2 years as an Army reservist. Following that, he worked as a medical and dental assistant. Additionally, he managed to secure employment locally with haulage companies and even volunteered at a local nursing home. Maury Travis's enrollment in Morris Brown College in 1986 at the age of 22 seemed like a positive step forward. However, it was also in this private institute in Atlanta where he encountered and formed a relationship with cocaine, sending his life into a downward spiral. His addiction quickly escalated to a severe level, costing him $300 a day. Maury's plunge into criminal activities to support his habit swiftly brought him to the attention of law enforcement the following year. Up until that point, he had a clean record, making his sudden shift into illegal behavior quite unexpected. Rather than a gradual escalation, his actions took a surprising and abrupt turn from his prior conduct. In March 1988, during his college spring break, Maury engaged in a string of robberies that raised eyebrows. To everyone's surprise, he targeted 5 shoe stores in St. Louis within 8 days. What added an unusual twist to these crimes was his choice of weapon. Instead of a loaded firearm, he used a plastic toy gun to instill fear. This abrupt shift into criminal behavior was truly unexpected, especially given his clean record prior to these incidents. This is where Maury Travis took a sharp turn into criminal activity. The armed robberies he committed resulted in his initial capture. Witnesses provided the police with details about his car, leading to his arrest. The detective handling the case was taken aback, as Maury didn't fit the typical image of a criminal. Upon being apprehended, Maury claimed to have hazy memories of the crimes, attributing it to drug influence. While awaiting sentencing, he underwent a drug rehabilitation program and claimed to have successfully overcome his addiction. Despite these efforts and his clean record before this, the court had taken his actions into account during proceedings. Character references poured in support of Maury, including one from a congressman and U.S. representative. These testimonials highlighted his rehabilitation efforts, asserting that his criminal behavior was an aberration in his character. Despite this acknowledgement, Maury received a 15-year prison sentence on July 5, 1989, at the age of 23. This marked the start of his time behind bars for his criminal actions. From the outset, Maury realized that his time in prison wouldn't be easy. He attested to the inhospitable conditions, citing frequent assaults and an abundance of drugs that posed a significant threat to his rehabilitation. Having successfully addressed his dependency issues, he found himself surrounded by drugs in this challenging environment. In a desperate plea to the judge, Maury wrote a letter, urging him to reconsider his sentence, pouring his heart out in the hope of a more lenient outcome. In his plea to the judge, Maury wrote on how he was constantly thinking of taking his own life due to the horrible conditions he is living in. He ended by asking the judge to give him another chance in society. Maury was granted parole in 1994, serving only 5 years and 3 months of his sentence at the Farmington Correctional Center. His early release was primarily attributed to his exemplary behavior. Although he had 13 conduct violations, they were minor infractions. Upon his release, he moved into a duplex where neighbors regarded him as an excellent resident who didn't cause any disturbances. After serving time initially from March 1989 through June 1994, Maury faced additional prison stays due to drug-related charges from February 1998 to January 1999 due to repeatedly violating his parole. Once outside prison, he worked in various restaurants, keeping to himself mostly. He also displayed an unusual fixation for his 2000 black Mitsubishi Eclipse, spending considerable time cleaning and maintaining it. Although neighbors and classmates of Maury didn't have any suspicious information about him, one of his former girlfriends had something different to say.
A boyfriend that I grew to love and wanted to marry and have his children. He told me he would really hurt me. He knew, "You don't know me, girl."
When he said, "You don't know me," did you think maybe I don't know him?
I knew to get the hell out of there. He was a very beautiful person. He was supportive, and he helped me build my self-esteem back up.
In March of 2001, Maury's girlfriend left him, and this was when bodies of women began to turn up around town. Between March 2001 and May 2002, Maury would actively pick up sex workers along the extended stretch of Broadway known as the Stroll, north of St. Louis. In fact, 4 suspected victims of Maury were later discovered in this area. It gained notoriety for its numerous crack houses and the availability of such workers. Maury would pick them up and then bring them back to his home in Ferguson. Once there, he would keep some of these women for days, subjecting them to his whims. However, it wasn't solely for his personal satisfaction. He recorded the horrifying events taking place in the basement. Videotapes documenting these acts were later discovered, concealed within a wall. Some of the video clips showed Maury engaging in consensual but rough roleplay involving bondage with women. There were also instances when he was seen using drugs, yet he would let them go unharmed. However, in other footage, Maury could be seen indulging in much darker activities, from keeping women hostage for days in his dungeon to strangling them to death. Law enforcement initially struggled to comprehend why he chose to spare certain women while murdering others. One hypothesis suggests that the tipping point might have been when he discovered that a particular sex worker had children. It appeared that this discovery triggered a violent rage in him, since they chose drugs over their children. Although it's not confirmed, that's the association they've drawn.
You want to say something to your kids?
Mama, sorry.
Who raising your kids?
Me and my mom and dad.
You ain't raising shit. You on here in your back smoking crack. You ain't going home tomorrow. I'm going to keep you about a week.
Later, he would establish his total dominance.
Say it clear.
You want the master?
He also made them perform the most unbelievable rituals. Maury would get them to dance in white clothes, then at times he'd get them to wear sunglasses where the lenses were completely blacked out, so they couldn't see. By doing this, he was taking power away from them completely. He would then restrain their legs with a rope and handcuff them. At times, he'd even cover their eyes with duct tape. In the footage that they found, they saw these women shackled to a wooden post with Maury verbally taunting them. He would tell them what was going to happen, or they needed to berate them as well. At times, he'd get angry because he'd find out that these women had children. He also used to criticize them, expressing aggression and violence due to their choice of drugs over their kids.
I can't hear you what you're
You
saying.
want the
Say it
master?
clear.
You want the master that pleases me to serve you. You are the master that pleases me to serve you.
Stop for
You are the master that pleases me to serve you.
Now you sit your ass down like I said.
In some of the earliest footage, Maury is actually seen standing over a kneeling naked woman, heavily bound with a rope and handcuffed. Then he suddenly grabs the belt, snaps it tightly around her neck, and strangles her until she's unconscious and she's limp. He may even have broken her neck. He then just leaves her body face down on the floor. It's truly horrifying to think that Maury Travis was able to carry out such horrific crimes without raising suspicion. One thing we know is Maury Travis's ability to blend into the background made him a master of disguise. His unassuming nature allowed him to operate unnoticed, making him the last person anyone would suspect of such heinous crimes. On July 31, 2000, the discovery of the first known victim, Mary Shields, 61, in East St. Louis, Illinois, began a haunting pattern. In the months that followed, the tragedies escalated. On March 24, 2001, the body of Cassandra F. Walker, 19, was found in Washington Park, Illinois. Alyssa Greenway, a 34-year-old caught in a seemingly hopeless cycle of addiction, was discovered deceased on April 1, 2001, in Washington Park, Illinois. Her body showed signs of strangulation, with ligature marks found on her wrist and ankles. Near her body, authorities found a tire impression, identified as a Bridgestone Potenza tire, which was photographed for further analysis. Not long after, on May 15, 2001, Teresa Wilson, 36, was discovered in West Alton, Missouri. May 30, 2001, marked the discovery of Betty James, 46, in St. Louis, with an evident tire impression distinct from earlier scenes. The St. Louis Police Department strongly believed that all these murders were the work of the same individual, as the crimes were executed in a similar manner. By June 29, 2001, Verona Thompson, 36, was found in West Alton, Missouri. Following this, on August 25, 2001, Yvonne Cruz, 50, was discovered in East St. Louis, Illinois. The haunting silence after October 8, 2001, when Brenda Beasley, aged 33, was found dead in East St. Louis, Illinois, raised speculation. Authorities speculated three possible scenarios. Either the perpetrator was in custody, had passed away, or had relocated from the area. However, the unsettling quiet broke as the year changed. The cycle resumed, claiming 4 more lives. The first unidentified victim was found on January 30, 2002. Another unidentified victim was found near Muscatoa, Illinois, on March 11, 2002. The next unidentified victim was discovered in Columbia, Illinois, on March 28, 2002. And the final unidentified victim was reported in West Alton, Missouri, on May 25, 2002. Each day marked a sorrowful moment, revealing a frightening pattern. What ultimately led to uncovering the killer will stun you like never before. In an attempt to bring attention to one of the victims and maintain public interest in the investigation, Bill Smith penned an article. This was about Teresa Wilson, a victim, and her life struggles leading up to her unfortunate demise. He named the killer the Streetwalker Strangler. The article was published in the paper's May 19, 2002 issue.
What I think I ended up doing was humanizing this woman who, in a way, had kind of dehumanized her own life by getting involved in prostitution and drug activities.
Less than a week later, Smith received a letter at his desk. While it's not uncommon for media personnel to receive letters or correspondence, this letter had an unusual return address on the envelope. I Thraldom, 325, 331 Lafayette Street, New York, New York, 10012. The letter bore a St. Louis postmark, indicating it had been mailed locally. The zip code 10012 encompasses portions of Manhattan's Soho, NoHo, Nolita, and Greenwich Village neighborhoods. The letter bore a St. Louis postmark, indicating it had been mailed locally. However, the I Thraldom address is fictional. so why would someone use that term for an address? According to Merriam-Webster, thraldom refers to the state of being an enslaved person. It also served as the name of a bondage website. The letter was typed using what appeared to be Lucida handwriting font in red ink, with minimal punctuation. Smith initially believed it was a prank. He quickly realized the letter was no joke, and that a person claiming to be the streetwalker strangler was contacting him. The letter read, "Dear Bill, nice sob story about Teresa Wilson. Write one about Greenwade, write a good one, and I'll tell you where many others are, to prove I'm real. Here's directions to number 17. Search in a 50-yard radius from the X. Put the story in the Sunday paper like the last." The letter Bill received included a map of West Alton, marked with an X, indicating the location of a body. The sender offered to reveal the locations of additional victims and, as evidence of their identity, provided directions to number 17, accompanied by a typed internet-generated map. After finding a skeleton at the marked spot, authorities focused on the map, which appeared to have been generated using an internet mapping service. They found a possible match on Expedia.com, according to an affidavit by FBI agent Melanie Jimenez. On May 30, 2002, Expedia informed Jimenez that Microsoft, based in Redmond, Washington, provided the data for its map site. The FBI requested records of any maps of West Alton made between May 18, 2002, the date of the newspaper story that prompted the letter, and May 21, 2002, the postmark on the envelope. It took 4 days to receive a response. On June 3, 2002, Microsoft reported that only one computer had accessed the map during the specified time period. The company further revealed that on May 20th, the computer had zoomed in on the map of the West Alton, Missouri area approximately 10 times in chronological order, eventually generating a map that matched the one sent to the Post-Dispatch. However, Microsoft could not provide a name, only an IP address, a meaningless string of numbers to most people, 65.227.106.78. To translate the IP number into a name, the FBI turned to WorldCom Incorporated, which provided local telephone numbers to connect internet services to their dial-up customers. WorldCom assigns a temporary IP address to each customer for each internet session. The challenge was not just to identify who used 65.227.106.78, but also to determine who used it at the specific time in question. The next day, on June 4, 2022, WorldCom's Internet Division, UUNet, identified the user as MSN/Maury Travis. This led to the identification of the user's real name, Maury Troy Travis of Ferguson. Before this, back in 2001, Maury also hinted about his crime to one of his co-workers. He told him that East St. Louis was a good place to hide objects due to minimal police presence. He also told his co-worker's girlfriend, who worked at a TV station, that prostitutes' bodies were dumped in the same area. Maury didn't state that he was the one who killed them, but he said he knew about it from a friend. The taunting letter to the editor and his hints to co-workers suggest that Maury might have been one of those serial killers who craved attention. His actions indicate a desire to be found, a twisted sense of power derived from the fear he instilled in the community. This information provided the basis for surveillance, and on June 7, 2002, an arrest and search warrant.
I knocked. I said, FBI, we have a search warrant. I announced at least 3 times.
The warrant led to the discovery of evidence, including DNA and tire tread marks, linking Maury, a 36-year-old waiter, to some of the killings.
Mr. Shorts, the first thing out of his mouth was, "It's 7 o'clock in the morning." You're right, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and we're serving a federal search warrant. Okay, why are you here? And our response was, you know why we're here. He dropped his head. He said, yeah, I know why you're here.
Investigators launched a thorough search of Maury's residence in Ferguson, Missouri, uncovering a horrifying scene. Hidden within the depths of his home, they discovered a torture chamber. The ground floor of his home was tidy and well maintained. The woman who lived with him, identified as his girlfriend, told police she had no clue about the basement and had never been there. While police officers examined the house and basement, FBI agents and other investigators conducted a 2-hour interrogation of Maury in his living room. They learned that his mother owned the residence and had allowed him to stay there. Authorities later revealed that Maury evaded giving direct answers and instead inquired about how they had located him. Upon being informed that the computer-printed map had led them to his doorstep, Maury became enraged. Shortly after, police escorted Maury outside and placed him in a car. He consented to accompanying the police downtown for further questioning. Computer forensics experts entered the house to inspect Maury's computer, where they uncovered drafts of the letter sent to journalist Bill Smith. Downstairs, investigators uncovered a house of horrors. They found bloodstains on the walls and on the ceiling and on the carpet and furniture as well. Within this, they discovered chilling torture instruments, a menacing stun gun, and newspaper clippings documenting his heinous crimes. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come. Videotapes capturing Maury's unspeakable acts of violence, subjecting his victims to horrific acts. The evidence from this torture chamber, coupled with DNA analysis, suggested that he committed the murders of between 12 and 20 women. He had been preying on vulnerable individuals, many of whom were drug addicts and sex workers, in the states of Missouri and Illinois between 2000 and 2022. Travis asked for a soda during questioning. Later, the can he drank from was sent to the lab for testing. DNA swabs were taken from the area near the opening of the can for epithelial cells in Travis's saliva, which could be used for DNA testing. Travis's DNA profile was then compared to the biological material found on 2 of the murder victims, Yvonne Cruz and Brenda Beasley. St. Louis Police Captain Harry Heger said that the investigators also found a crude diagram in Maury's home, showing plans for a basement extension. Heger said that Maury was planning to build 2 cells in the basement, where he could chain the women, and then he was planning to build vents connecting the basement to the outside. Heger said that Maury also made a list of things that he needed to keep the woman captive for some time, and that one of the items on the list was adult diapers. We spoke about the victims who were identified, but now let us uncover a few who are not known till the present. On May 25, 2002, the tragic case of St. Charles County Jane Doe came to light, adding another victim to the list of serial killer Maury Travis. The woman's remains were discovered near West Alton, Missouri, leaving her identity shrouded in mystery for 21 years. The discovery of St. Charles County Jane Doe unfolded following the anonymous letter sent to local reporter Bill Smith on May 21, 2002. The skeletal remains of St. Charles County Jane Doe were found west of Highway 67 and south of St. Charles Street, scattered over a 30-foot wide area. It was determined that she was a female between the ages of 25 and 35, of black ethnicity, and approximately 5'4" in height. 1 or more limbs and 1 or both hands were not recovered. The remains found at the crime scene included a sleeveless coarse blue denim dress with metal buttons, a black and silver V-neck stretch shirt with 3/4-length sleeves, a black spandex top, a torn piece of blue jean-type material, a white cotton tube sock, a blue shoestring-type tie-up in the back, and a thin white cotton fragment. A few months prior, on March 28, 2002, another discovery had been made: the remains of an unidentified woman. She would come to be known as Monroe County Jane Doe, one of the 3 victims of the notorious St. Louis serial killer, Maury Travis. Her identity remains a mystery, her story shrouded in silence. She was believed to be between the ages of 29 and 50, her African American heritage evident in her skin tone. She stood at 5 feet 1 inch tall. Her petite frame weighed about 105 pounds. Her dark brown hair bore the mark of a healed fracture on her forehead, possibly a mark of a childhood injury. There was no indication that she had ever given birth. At the time of her discovery, they could find only skeletal remains, along with a green shirt and the letter M and the word Mavericks in orange lettering. Her attire was completed by khaki canvas shorts and a brown leather belt with a silver buckle. These simple garments, provided the only clues to her identity, silent witnesses to her life. Just a few weeks before that, on March 11, 2002, in Marine, Illinois, the remains of Madison County Jane Doe were found. Madison County Jane Doe was believed to be between the ages of 23 and 30. Her ethnicity identified as Black. Her height was estimated to be between 5'1" and 5'6", and she weighed around 105 pounds. She also had dark hair. When discovered, the victim's decomposed body was clad in a red and white checkered flannel-style shirt, bearing the brand Tommy Hilfiger, and a pair of gray shorts from the brand Second Skins. A little under 2 months before that, St. Clair County Jane Doe, a woman whose identity remains a mystery, was discovered on January 30, 2002. Her skeletal remains were found in Mascota, Illinois, though the exact cause of her death remains undetermined. She is presumed to be one of the unidentified victims of serial killer Maury Travis. At the time of her discovery, she was believed to be between the ages of 20 and 40, of African American descent. Her skeletal remains revealed clues about her life, including 3 piercings in her right ear, a healed fracture above her left ankle, and additional healed fractures on her nasal bones, left second rib, wrist, and below her neck. She was found wearing a black velour sleeveless catsuit, bearing the brand Jason Matthews, with full-length legs. 2 yellow metal rings adorned her left middle finger. People were shocked and confused by how a man with such an appealing personality could be involved in these terrible crimes. The mother of one of his ex-girlfriends from Pagedale expressed her shock and disbelief over the news of Maury's arrest. Her daughter had dated him back in 2001, and she described him as a perfect gentleman, who always seemed happy and laid back. She couldn't believe that the man she knew could be different from the person now accused of such heinous crimes. Maury was suspected of being involved in the murders of 12 women, and he was also charged with 2 counts of kidnapping. Federal court documents linked him to these crimes. Police investigators believed that Maury may have killed more than 17 women in total. Following his arrest on June 7, 2002, Maury was taken into custody for interrogation and was placed on preventative monitoring until his trial for the alleged offenses. Just when St. Louis thought justice had been served with Maury's arrest on June 7, 2002, the city saw darkness again. 3 days later, on June 10, 2002, Maury planned to escape his sentence. He did that in the most unthinkable way possible. Maury Travis reportedly wrote a brief note on a sheet of paper in his 8th floor jail cell in Clayton. Outside the cell, another inmate tasked with monitoring Maury attempted to keep watch through a window. Maury had no desire to spend the rest of his life in prison or face execution by injection. He conveyed to those who would read his final words. Instead, he decided to end his life on his own terms. He explained that he left a note to demonstrate, "You guys didn't kill me." His note read, "Dear Mom, I'm sorry for the pain this caused you and the family. My death seems to be the only way out and a fast end to all the publicity. You were the best mother a man could have, but I've been sick for a long time, sick in the head, since I was about 14. I don't know why. I was just sick. I've never felt normal or happy at any time in my life. I think about the life I lead and what's ahead of me. This seems the best solution for all involved, especially me, because I won't spend the rest of my life locked up, or worse, let them kill me with a needle. Tell Grandma, Marina, James, and everybody I love them dearly. I love you the most, but you know that. Forever your son, Toby Travis." Jail regulations prohibited the inmate assigned to the anti-self-harm vigil from maintaining a clear view of what was to transpire, and the guards, violating jail rules, skipped 2 15-minute checks, providing Maury with 45 minutes of privacy to carry out his plan.
To say that I was angry, and to say that people in the newsroom were angry about it and that the community was angry about it is really an understatement. I think people were furious. And the families of those women should have been furious. That absolutely no way should have ever been allowed to happen.
When Mr. Travis hung himself, he took all the answers with him.
According to Clayton police, Maury meticulously threaded a torn strip of bedsheet through small holes in a jail wall vent, 6 feet from the floor, and looped the other end around his neck. He placed a pillowcase over his head, stuffed additional cloth into his mouth, and somehow managed to tie his hands behind his back.
I think it's amazing that it's such an incredible tool that through analyzing the computer, we were able to catch someone that was committing crimes like this.
12 years after Maury himself died in prison, his mother, Sandra Travis, still owned the home where he committed his horrific acts in 2014. She rented the home to Katrina McGaw, without mentioning the house's dark past. McGaw learned about the house's history from a television documentary and requested to break her lease, but Sandra refused. News 4 contacted Sandra, who claimed she had informed McGaw about the house's past. McGaw denied this, stating she would have remembered the murders if Sandra had told her. Technically, landlords are not obligated to disclose information about a home's past. In this country, landlords are only required to report physical defects. The St. Louis Housing Authority intervened, allowing McGaw to move out at the end of the month, despite Sandra's objections. The situation was complex. On one hand, it was understandable that Sandra, the mother of a serial killer, would want to put the past behind her. She was legally entitled to rent the house without disclosing any information about past events, but it may not be ethically right to do so. On the other hand, McGaw, who had a 2-year-old daughter, was uncomfortable living in a house where women were tortured and murdered. She also mentioned that her daughter had been occasionally playing near the same pool in the basement where Maury Travis tied up his victims. Considering how disturbing the whole situation was, McGaw understandably wanted to move out as soon as possible. Sadly, the victims found no closure. Moreover, several victims remain unidentified, adding to the heartbreak of this case. After witnessing these tragic events, one thing becomes evident. You never truly know who lives next door. This monstrous individual was carrying out these heinous acts right beneath everyone's noses, escaping notice even from those close to him. What's truly confounding is the mystery surrounding his actions. How could he commit 17 murders in his basement without anyone suspecting a thing? Not even the woman he dated. And then, the ultimate enigma. Why did he choose to end his own life in that prison cell? Was the prison reality more horrific than the agony these women faced? Or was he such a narcissist that he couldn't bear anyone else deciding when his life would end? This case raises more questions than answers. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this case interesting, make sure you like the video, subscribe to Mysterious Hook, as we uncover more tales of the unheard victims, shedding light on stories that deserve to be told.